Good morning. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you're new, go ahead and hit that subscribe button while you're here, and welcome. We thank you for taking time to be with us. I've been working on a 660 Ford tractor, 1957 model that I acquired recently. Yesterday, I took the front wheels off and I took them down to the tire shop to get them replaced. And whenever I was doing that, I noticed on the driver's side, which is the left front, that the bearing was very, very loose. And so I went ahead and took that one off, knocked the bearings out and looked at it, went inside. There's a mosquito after me. Went inside to check on the different bearing sizes, and I found that there's two different front ends that they put on these Ford tractors, this particular model. And so I know that this right front, the passenger side, is tight. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take that one out and I'm going to compare it to the left front. I think maybe there was a mistaken set of bearings put in on the left front because it was so loose. And so I'm going to do that today. We're going to check that out. I thought you might be interested in seeing what it takes to change the bearings on a front wheel on one of these Ford 660 tractors. I'll show you everything we need. I think you'll enjoy it. Here are the tools and the supplies that you'll need. Of course, you'll need a bag to put your paper towels in. You'll need a lot of paper towels. You'll need a hammer, a punch, a long punch like that. You'll need that set of needle nose, and you'll need an adjustable wrench, and of course a couple of gloves if you want to keep your hands clean, because we are going to get really greasy. There's going to be a lot of grease on the inside of this hub packed in there, so we'll need to clean a lot of that out before we get those bearings out, or you'll have a mess all over you, and still you'll have a mess anyway. So having gloves, having lots of paper towels, very important to this project. Put on my gloves. By the way, I'm wearing a hat, wearing these long sleeve camo colored shirts because they hide a lot of grease, they hide a lot of boo-boos, and that's why I wear them. I have some solid white ones that are great for wearing out in the sun, but I don't wear them whenever I'm mechanicking. I try and wear a lot of camo clothes because they hide a lot of grease and indiscretions. Okay, and I wear a hat because I've had skin cancer a couple of times, and you need to really protect yourself whenever you're out like this. Okay, pull this up out of the way. You put this on so that you can loosen this thing, and I can't loosen it, but here's a little trick. Show you. You take your some kind of a bar or your punch right here. You put on your adjustable wrench. I keep wanting to call it a crescent wrench because that's a brand name. Whack it with a hammer to try and break it loose. There we go. And you can break it loose that way. I like these caps that screw on instead of hammer in because they don't come off. You don't lose them. Alright, get this dust cap off. Before I go any further, get me a nice little platform of paper towels down here. Here we go. Put that on it. Okay. Clean some grease off out of the way. And you'll have a castellated nut here with a cotter pin. A castellated nut is a serrated nut. It has serrated edges on the outer edge so that you can use a cotter pin to hold that nut in place. Right here is your cotter pin, and they're usually bent backwards like that, and they often break like this, so you'll usually have to replace them. That's not uncommon. In fact, you're supposed to replace them after every use anyway. So I'll dig around in the toolbox and find a new one. Twist. There's your cotter pin out. Clean it off so you can see it. Right there on the paper towel. Okay, now we have this serrated nut. Sometimes you can loosen it with your fingers. There, I can loosen it a little bit with my fingers. You take your wrench, adjustable wrench, put it on the shoulders. Lefty loosey, turn it left. Still needs help. Can't do it by my hand. Thread's just a little bit tight. There we go. Loosen that off. Keep your paper towels handy. Keep your tools clean. Hands are already getting dirty, see? Okay. There's your serrated or castellated nut. We will reuse this nut. It holds the bearing on, inner and outer bearings, holds a washer. So let's clean this off good. Alright, this down here in the way. First thing you usually want to do is just bump it like that. Just give it a good bump. See how much I loosened it there? And then just kind of pull a little bit like this. Alright, here's your outer cone bearing. There we go. And there's your washer right there. And most of these washers have a little, I call them a tang. I'll clean it up a little bit to show you. Right here is a directional tab. So that it'll only go in one way. There's a slot cut in the top of this spindle. And it only goes in there one way. And it holds that bearing in there good and tight. Okay, clean that thing off a little bit. Now then, here's our bearing. And the others, this is called the cone or the bearing. And the other part of it is driven into this hub, and it's called the cup or the race. Alright, this bearing number is a 09067, and it's the same bearing that came off of the other side. Alright, put it right there. All you have to do is just pull, and this entire hub assembly comes out. Now, you have your cup here, your race, your outer bearing, and you have your inner bearing, which is always bigger. Here's the shoulder on the spindle where the outer bearing runs. See the size? It's about an inch. This one is bigger. If I'm not mistaken, well, I can't remember, but as you can see, it steps up, it's bigger. And then right here is the shoulder where the seal actually runs. And you talk about dirty. So that tells me that this seal was worn out and not doing a good job of sealing. And as you can see from the excess grease on the back here, we know, all the evidence tells us that this was not sealing good. There we go. Clean that thing off good enough so that the shoulders on the new seal will have a good clean surface on which to ride. So that's important. Part of this job is cleaning. I hate it, and it's nasty. That's why I keep a paper bag here. I mean, paper towels in a plastic bag. Get this old grease off. Totally off the spindle and out of the way so that I can see, inspect, figure out what I'm working with. That's good and tight. But I have a loose tie rod in right there. That's why it's moving. Okay, that's fairly clean. Great. Okay, let's get this hub apart. To get this hub apart, oddly enough, you take this chisel and you turn it over on something hard like this. Believe it or not, you take your hammer, go to the back side of the bearing, give it a good whack. And I mean a good whack. Move over to the other side of the bearing, give it another good whack. You say, what are you doing? I'm trying to drive this seal out using the bearing. And I've loosened it a little, as you can see right here. Difficult holding it up on this edge without any support on the bottom, but if you supported the bottom, you'd not be able to drive it out. You'd just be driving against the bottom. Getting close. And when you do finish and succeed, it'll fall right out. And there it did. It fell right out. Now all I have is a race or a cup, a good seal, well, an intact seal, and here on the ground is my bearing. Get another paper towel, start to work on that bearing, and it is a made in the USA. That's good. Let's see what number it is. Timken, a 13123. Different, very different from the one on the other side. Let me get it and tell you what it's at. It's a 67048 and this is a 13123. So my suspicions were correct. That hub on the other side had the wrong bearing set in it. Therefore I was able to move it almost an inch this way and up and down. And that's dangerous, so it's very important that you get the right one, the right bearing set. Let's see if I can see a number on this seal. NCA 1199A. Okay, so there's the bearings, there's the there's the seal, and here's the races. Now, show you how I'm going to get those cups out. You take your punch, and on the inside of this hub, one of the beautiful things about the manufacturing of this, on the inside of this hub they cut out 2 slots so you can drive these races out very easy compared to most hubs. Hit them hard. But you go from side to side, little at a time. Oh, you can hear it. I'm already down on the wood, and look at there, it fell right out. Timken 09195. Okay, looks like the same outer bearings fit this one as the other side, but the inner bearings were different. Okay, turn this over. Go to work on this. Good hit. Move to the other side. Okay, you heard that? Sounds like it's down on the platform there. Clean off my tool. Turn it over. It came right out. Now then, I'll give you a little look on the inside of this hub. Here's the lip that's cut for the seal. It goes in last. There's the square shoulder cut for the race that we just drove out. And there's a square cut shoulder for the outer race right there. It's a good idea to take your rag, reach up in here, clean the old gunky grease out of this thing while you have it. This is a 1957. Some of this grease is probably that old. There it is. Part of it anyway. You want good grease to be able to flow. So I don't want grease that's so old and so thick that the viscosity is gone. And viscosity means viscous, or the ability to flow, and or the rate at which things flows. Viscosity is the rate at which liquids flow. And so you might check me on Google. I'm not sure that that's the exact answer, but whenever I worked in the paint department at O'Reilly's, whenever I was in college in Springfield, we checked the viscosity of paint after we mixed it, and we ran it through viscosity flow meters. So I'm quite sure that's pretty much right. But anyway, you need the grease. Even though it's thick, you need it to be able to flow and move around to lubricate the inside of these bearings. We don't put it in there for no reason at all. We put it in there to lubricate these bearings so that whenever we move this tractor, the friction is lessened by having a good slick material in there called grease. And so it lubricates, it lowers friction, and yes, part of this job is cleaning, and so I'll speed up through all of that here and get back to you in a little bit. Say, are you obsessed with cleaning? No, I'm not. However, you're talking about precision machinery here in your life, and you're running these things on precision tolerances, and so it's important to get every one of those shoulders in there clean so that you can drive those races back in and they seat, and not seat against old material, but seat metal to metal. So that's why I took so much time to clean all these shoulders and all of this out. And I'll leave this sitting right here. I'll get my bearings, and then I will get back with you whenever we start reversing this process and driving these in. The first thing we'll do is drive these races in. Then we'll pack the bearings with grease, and we'll put this rubber seal in last on the back side. We'll put in our bearings, put our washer back in, screw our nut on, put on a new cotter pin, and put our grease cap back on. And I'll show you how that works and how much you tighten this to get it seated good, and then you'll have a good, safe hub on the front end of your tractor. I'll get back with you. We are back and have our bearings, our seals, and the rest of our supplies ready to reverse what we did earlier and install the hub. Here's a new bearing set. I ordered these through Tractor Supply. I'm not endorsing Tractor Supply. Just letting you know where I sourced them. A new seal, new grease seal. A new cup and cone, bearing and race, we call them. Inner, outer. The outers are always smaller. This inner goes in and rides. Right there on that shoulder, right there. The outers ride right there on that shoulder, right there. Okay. I have some 220 grit sandpaper. There we go. Really looks nice. Goes on perfect. Goes on perfect. There we go. A good tool to have in your toolbox. A little bit of sandpaper. Okay. Wipe the inside of this hub out. Now then, we have to take these races and drive them back in. They start pretty good, but then they stop. The tools I use to remove them are the tools that I will use to install them again. And what you do is you just gently go around in a circle and tap that back down in there. This is not about might, this is about finesse. So you're slow and easy. Steady. Okay, I'm beginning to hit bottom. You can see it in there. I can feel it. I'm going to make sure that I'm fully seated. That is very important. See in there that I'm fully seated. I feel it. Now you turn it over. You take the large race for the inner bearing. Clean all of this one last time. Make sure it's good and clean. Get any of that surface rust off of it from that rain. Make sure all the edges in there are clean. You don't want it to go down there and seat against something and not be able to fully seat. All right. Same process. Tap, tap. This one is moving a little bit, so I'm going to put it down here on the deck.
Email.
You see the general idea. I'll drive it in and I'll be back. I have those races fully seated in there. Now comes the messy part. You don't just put the bearings in and mount them. You have to take these bearings and pack them full of grease. So we start with the larger one. I'm using some good wheel bearing grease. Any brand will work. You'll want to use your gloves like this. and you wipe it in. Just like that. But you want it, when you're wiping it in, you want to push it in until it comes out of the bearings on the other side. And that takes a little time, and that takes a little effort. So this is the most time-consuming and dirty part. It's not really dirty, it's just messy, of this process. They do make some little tools that you can clamp around this and take a grease gun and squeeze the grease into these, and they work great. I just don't have one. I do recommend them. However, this works just fine, and many bearings are greased every day all over the planet this way. Rub it into the bearing. Get it good and greasy. And you go, okay, you've greased it. Then I like to recommend putting your fingers in the middle and turning it. And you'll find out that you don't have it fully greased yet. Rub it in, let it rub, the inner part of the bearing move against the outer part. There we go. And you'll find that you're not fully greased. Start over. Rub some more down in there, forcing it down into the bearing, into those roller needle bearings. Then you'll be finished. Okay, take a little bit, rub in there on the face of your race, put in your bearing. I like to take a little at this point and try to force it down in there on the bearings through the top of that. Okay, see how nasty you are. Okay, now then, since we're working on the inner, I need to put the grease seal in. And one of the first things I'm going to do is grease the face of the seal here, because whenever it goes against this back here, I don't want it to tear. And since I have some on my fingers, I'm going to lightly coat it as well. This area right here, because they're going to mate against one another right there. Okay? All right, you take your seal. You put this outer part right here, not the rubber part, the metal part on the outside, and you gently tap it in. Takes a little work because it keeps wanting to go pop back out. Just easy.
Text message.
Come on. That helped. That helped a lot right there. See, I used that wood on the deck there. Ever so gentle. Can you hear it? I'm hitting the hub, so we're finished. It's level there. Now then, I can go ahead and mount my hub. And there. Now, grease my outer bearing. That one's finished. Raise this up, slide it in like that. Now you can see the entire hub is in there. Roll that in there, roll some more in there. Okay, and that hub is good and tight. Okay, let's get some of this grease off my hands. Okay, I have some old parts to reuse. This castellated nut, this tabbed washer, cotter pin, which I'm going to get a new one to replace it, and this cap, this threaded dust cap. Now then, they go on in the order they came off. So wipe off this tabbed nut, washer, excuse me, and the tab goes in this slot right here in the top. Come on. There we go. It should slide on very easily. Now the castellated nut. Some people call them slotted nuts. I'm going to need my wrench. I have my combination wrench, or my crescent, people call them. You tighten this all the way. You don't want it coming off while you're out there in the field doing work. Come on. Getting close. There. Now, after it gets on tight, I'm just going to take this wrench right here and just give it a good tap. And it's on tight. One last thing before you put everything up. Take a little bit of your wheel bearing grease. Dab a little on each, apply a little on each of these wheel studs. And then it will be easy for you to get your nuts back on, and you won't have a seize problem with them seizing. Because as you could see, they were a bit rusty. There's no telling how long it had been since these wheels had been off. And of course, you mount your wheels normally. 90 foot-pounds. Don't resist mounting them with your air ratchet, your air impact, excuse me, and then tightening them up and going on. Tighten them up, snug them up, and then stop. And take your torque wrench and torque them at 90 foot-pounds each, and you'll be okay. Well, there we have finished installing new bearings on the front of our 1957 Ford 660 actually, and this is probably going to be the same for any of the 8N, 9N, 2Ns, the NAAs, Jubilee 600s, 800s, maybe even the 1000 series tractors. Most all of them take this same process right here. If you have any questions about what I did, if you didn't understand something or you're wondering, be sure and put a comment below. I'll be happy to answer it. Thanks for spending the time with us on this channel. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your life. I know that it's valuable and important. I hope we've earned your subscription by now, so please subscribe. It's free to subscribe to a YouTube channel like ours. So please do, and hit the bell so you'll be notified when we upload again. Please hit the like button. Thank you so much. God bless you, and have a great day.